I'll get us started here. So welcome again to everyone to our HR Council for, this is still April, right? So April, and happy to have any guests to this call as well. And very happy to have Mac McVey, President of Clearview Management Resources, back with us again. Mac presented, I think it was a month ago or 2 months ago. We had them in for sort of a part one, but I think not necessarily like you had to have seen that one in order to get a lot out of this one. But he's going to be talking about the building blocks to talent development and learn how to use integrated systematic approach to improve the way you develop and engage talent. And in this conversation, we will discuss how to design, deploy, measure, and verify talent growth tactics, as well as maximizing the ROI of engagement. And with that, I believe I'll hand it right over to Mac for him to introduce himself and get into the presentation.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. So we got Matt and Mac. I do get it confused sometimes. Other people get it confused. Okay. Welcome. My background, if you look at my whole career, that the one common thread throughout is talent development. Been involved in this since, I probably shouldn't say this, since 1973, when I went through training program to be a nuclear power plant operator with the United States Navy, and performed well enough that they picked me up to be an instructor. And so I spent 3 to 4 years being an instructor of nuclear power plant operators, and it was all structured OJT. So have a good bit of experience in the design of structured OJT, which some people also know. There can be an AKA to it. Apprenticeship programs are basically a structured OJT program. So that's where I started. In recent years, moved to designing talent development software, talent management software, human capital management software. Sometimes these terms can be confusing to people. Which one are we talking about now? And people start mixing the use of some of these terms. So without further ado, here we go. I've got Josh here helping me out with the system. So, and hello, Frank Hickman. I know Frank. Okay. I don't know how many of you know a Kelly Carey with JFS. She's a part of Ohio Means Jobs, and I saw this morning where she had a thing about the Gallup poll that said that no longer should we be focused on satisfying employees, but if we can focus on this one thing, the best thing we can deliver is talent development. All right. Well, I disagree. All right. And here's what I mean by that. The best things we can deliver are, right, talent development plus talent enabling plus talent engagement. How many of you have ever been through a training program, and then when you came back, nobody wanted to know about it? Nobody wanted you to, necessarily said anything about doing anything with it. I have had people talk about things such as decision making. I would like to find somebody who can make a decision. And one of the things that I have found more often than not is people can make decisions. People have gone to training and learned things, but what you need to have is leadership help to enable that. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you keep trying to make a decision and they keep telling you that's not your job, that's not how you make it, but they don't help you to actually learn in the workplace, here's how we do that. All right. And so after a while, people say, I'm not making a decision. The last thing I want to do is get stomped on again. So, right, I disagree because I think you also need the talent enabling and talent engagement. And I'll talk a little bit more about those as we go through. All right, so talent development, critical elements of a successful talent development system. And I know I have limited time, so I'm going to try to go through this relatively quickly. I could talk about this subject forever. Fortunate for you, I won't. Matt's only given me 45 minutes. So thank you, Matt. Talent development, structured. One of the first things you should think about is all talent development should be structured. It should have a system. I did a project with the Ohio Department of Youth Services, and they had for brand new juvenile corrections officers, they had a job shadowing program. Well, when I started to evaluate it, because we were called in to do an evaluation of their talent development systems, and when I went in there and looked to see what they had, there was no structure. Basically, it was you get assigned to you, you get assigned to you, right? So all the new juvenile corrections officers got assigned to current people who have been juvenile corrections officers. And what we found was there was no structure. And so what happened is if you had somebody who was really diligent about it, they would say, okay, follow me and I'm going to show you some things and I'll walk you through some things. Here's the things that I want to walk through today. And they would lay it out for them. And if you have any questions along the way, please ask me. And they would diligently go through a process. It wasn't written down, but they would go through a process. And others would say, hey, just follow me around. Don't get in the way. Don't get hurt. Okay. At the end of the day, we're both still alive. It was a good day, you know. And you found that some people at the end of this job shadowing program had learned quite a bit, and others had basically learned nothing, and in some cases got frustrated with the whole system, right? SMEs, subject matter experts, I believe 100% in them. And as a matter of fact, one of the programs we do is setting up subject matter expert systems. You need to have criteria for who are the subject matter experts. Subject matter experts are the people who are going to deploy much of your training, or who I recommend deploy much of your training, especially when you get into like apprenticeship programs, which are increasing in popularity, is that you want to be sure that you have somebody that you have verified, put through some process to verify it, to make sure that they're going to be teaching the right things, walking them through the right things. Talent development, enable it, let it achieve. I touched on that earlier. Make sure they get chances to use it and chances to discuss their opportunities to use. So I set it up to where you could use this today. You made that decision. How did it go? Did you use some sort of a matrix to analyze what were the different options? How did you feel about it in the end? What would you change? Okay, so talent development, enable it. Tracking it. How many of you think that you know all the talent that everybody in your organization has? All right. How many of you think you know all the talent growth capabilities everybody has? I mean, I keep going back to the stuff relative to nuclear operations in the Navy, but one of the things I can remember is we had a beautiful system, a structured system that started with theory and then went to actual work behaviors, work systems. And we ended up taking 18 to 26-year-old kids, some of them who hadn't finished high school, and having them successfully complete this and becoming some of the safest nuclear operators in the world. All right, you think about that. You want to talk about systems that you got to teach people, right? Robotics got nothing on, no, okay. One of the things that you need to do is track the talents that people have. What can they do? I am a person that's in talent development, human resources, talent management, and I have been for the last I don't know, so many years. But I also have nuclear engineering technology experience. I also have financial experience along the way. I had responsibility for $20 million and a $50 million budgets. And I've been a leader, supervisor, manager, executive. But if you were to just meet me today, you would not assume that I have this engineering technology background. You wouldn't assume that I would know anything about finances. Right? So you need to track what people have. This is great in setting up projects. You know, we need, how many of you have ever been on a part of a project and you were like, oh, this is great. We got somebody from that community of interest. We got somebody from that community of interest. Do we have anybody that knows problem solving? Do we have anybody that knows planning? Do we have anybody that knows research, right? Where you got partway through the process and you suddenly realize we got all the right parties here, but we don't have the right talents here. The same thing holds true in the workplace. And one of the things I have found is that you'd be amazed at what people can do that don't have as much education as you think they should have. All right. What you can learn today by picking up your phone and doing a search, YouTube, LinkedIn learning, and on and on and on. Okay. So you want to track what it is they have so that you can reach back and search it and be able to use it when you need it. Fully engage it. We'll talk about that one more later. Credential it. What do I mean by that? I believe in setting up like micro credentials, micro certifications. Those kinds of things are kind of like many people view them as badges of courage kind of thing. You know, I can say, look, you know, I remember Boy Scouts, right? You had all these merit badges. People like accomplishing things. How many of you do a lot of things just because you like to get things done? You like to accomplish something. You like to be able to say, I did that. So by credentialing it, you give people that opportunity to say, I have that. I can do that. Ongoing enhancement, mastery. You should set up basically a learning culture, and one where, you know, I talk about SMEs, subject matter experts. So when you first get your, like you complete an apprenticeship programs, you complete a learning system to perform your job, right? You're just competent, right? A subject matter expert is where you get to the point of mastery. I don't know how many of you like that, but I know that there's a lot of people that like being able to say, hey, I have this level of achievement, right? And know that people can rely on you. Okay, so those are some of the critical elements that I see in a successful talent development system. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
I just added a comment about, you mentioned credentialing, and I just put a comment about tech cred is still, applications are still being accepted for that.
Yes, yes, thank you. That's a, yes, good illustration. Okay. Talent development, it's a work process, treat it that way. Here are the basic steps, all right? First you got to do is define the purpose of the system, whatever it is that you're designing. And there's a lot of different training programs, a lot of different reasons to conduct training. So define the purpose, identify the support, design info. In apprenticeship programs, for instance, one of the design pieces that they use is a job description, right? What is it they're supposed to be able to accomplish on this job? And so you go to the job description and you use that as a part of the work processing to design the apprenticeship program. Libraries of tools. And when I say tools, I'm talking about talent development tools. And you'll see more about that. I'm going through, here's where we're going. Then you got to design and develop it. Then you deploy it. And then you measure it, verify it, and track it. Another incentive for people to learn is when they know that you're going to measure it at some point in time and then track it and engage it. How many of you have completed training programs and there was no measurement whatsoever of what you learned? How many of you have sent people to training programs and there has been no measurement of what they learned, right? They have, other than maybe some interest, right? They have no incentive to actually learn, okay? The measurement and the tracking it helps to give you incentive. All right, so define the purpose. A side note, I do have to tell you, like I said, I've been doing training for years and years and years. Been one of the common threads throughout my career. This virtual training programs, one of the hardest things that I've ever done, because I'm so used to being able to reach out and, I want to say touch the audience, but be able to see the audience, see how they respond. And so this is sometimes a little bit difficult to do when you're used to that. Okay, defining the purpose. I told you that learning is done for a number of different reasons. If you look at this graphic that I have here, when you're first designing a program, determine which category of talent development. Is it corporate driven or is it self-driven? For instance, is it corporate driven? It's an onboarding program, a corporate, what I call a corporate walkabout. Is it for somebody getting placed in a job? This is the first time they've been in this job, they're a new hire or they're a promotion. Is it for legal compliance? We've got an OSHA update. We've got some sort of civil rights law update. So it's for legal compliance. You've got a new customer contract. Right? Is it for transformations? You put in a new system, you make a change to a process. So you modify the process. You modify how jobs are organized, right? Whenever you do something in change management, you should have some sort of an update, otherwise known as talent development learning map, to help people to understand better what these changes are all about and what your roles are in those changes. Then we have something I call crucial at-risk talents. How many of you have where there's only one person in your whole organization that does it, and it's a crucial talent, it's a crucial outcome that you need to get, like maybe it's a sales position, and they're the only person and they've got your top 5 customers. That's what I call a crucial at-risk talent. I did a project for a hospital, and one of the things we found was that the hospital had an antiquated heating system for the hospital. It was actually a boiler system. And it was like one of only 10 of these systems in the whole country. Well, you had to be certified, a certified boiler operator on that system in order to operate it. They only had one person. Does that sound like a problem to you? Yeah. What happens if that person leaves? What happens, let's, don't want to say this, but if they leave permanently, all of a sudden you're going to have to, and this happens in February in Ohio this last year, right? How would you like to be able to tell your board of directors that you had to move all your patients to another hospital because you lost your boiler operator? Okay. We also found a situation where in that same hospital, the one person did all legal compliance, did medical legal compliance, did OSHA legal compliance, did on and on, all of it. That's what I call a crucial at-risk talent, that within a short period of time, if you lost this person, right, you would have a hard time operating. So you would train on some of those crucial at-risk talents is another reason to do it. You may also look for backups in the community, Other places with other professional organizations, that's another way to do it. Succession management jobs. You have succession trends, and you can see that jobs are turning over in one arena more rapidly than others. And so you need to start to develop people while they're in their current jobs to be able to move to these future jobs. Obviously, you want to help to justify that with them, like relative to career pathing. Okay, so you can see, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see that there are a number of different learning maps or checklists, reasons for doing training. And if you're doing one of these over another one, it's going to totally change your design. Okay. Identify support design info. I've got a partial list here. I have like 4 pages of this kinds of stuff. I could put you to sleep real quick with that. Anyway, so we've got things like micro credentials, the different levels of credentials. We've got mission statements. We've got job plan documents, or otherwise known as job descriptions, a variety of things. What are their responsibilities? What are the expected outcomes? What tools did they use? If we're designing a system, how many of you think that it would be important to make as a part of this training system, right, that we train on all tools that are used as a part of this job? Not just, I mean, sometimes people just focus on, okay, we've got a robotics job. We're just going to train on, we focus on making sure they understand how to use the robotics. But what if they have to write reports? What if they have to read other rules and guidelines, procedures, policies, etc., right? They should be trained on how to use all of these. Systems, workflow, processes, performance standards. Should they understand what the performance standards are? Measures, software, hardware, hand tools, high-tech equipment, etc. Again, this is just a partial list. If you do a detailed job description, job plan, you should be able to come up with all these different tools. But what I put together, and you would have to see the pages of this, is all these checklists that you could use over and over again. You should do the same thing. Take time now to start to say, if we were to do a job plan, what are all the documents, all the, the checklist of everything that people should have to design this talent development system, this training program, this curriculum. So that when you get down to it in the last moment, you're not now trying to scramble and figure out what it is you're doing. The other thing is, by having this system of the identifying all the things that go into the design of a training program, right? It gives you like a benchmarking, and you can use, and by having it in writing, it gives you like a benchmarking. It gives you something that if something's not working, you say, we're having a failure on them learning this. Why is that? And you can go back through and go through your checklist and look for where would you have designed this and make a modification to your checklist. Oh, look at that. We don't have this in there. Okay. It also helps you, let's say you have somebody that does this training for you, right? Internally. If they should leave, you have documentation of what they put together to build training programs. Okay, libraries of tools. When you get into training, I believe in blended learning as much as possible. When you set up even an apprenticeship program, right? You have some of it where they have like the theory part, and frequently that's fulfilled by like your local community college or career center. And so you have that. They will use in there, they will use videos, they'll use PowerPoints, they'll use other illustrations. You then have structured OJT, and in there, you may even not have all of the learning take place on the job, but you may say, okay, today, from this time to this time, we're going to have you participate in this on the job, but we'd like you to read, we'd like you to watch, right, this brief article, this video, this PowerPoint before you and do it. And then we'd like to have a discussion when you get in there about what is it that you saw in the video, what was it that you read in the article. Okay, now let's start to apply let's start to look at what it is that you're going to learn here. What does this piece of equipment do? How does that relate to that video you just saw? Okay, so libraries of tools. We've got in here videos, audios, the subject matter experts, what if mind drills. Some of you who have known me for a while, what if mind drills is like a scenario. What would you do if this happened? So you're operating this piece of equipment. What would you do if it shut down? What would you do if the product that it's working on suddenly broke? What would you do if, right? A library of these tools, what I mean by that is part of this is where you could actually engage SMEs to where they could go through and you could ask them, what are the top 10 things that you have found that are problems that you've run into as problems? What are the top 10 things that are a normal part of the operation? What are, right? And you ask them for all of these things and you put them into a library so that if this person ever ever left, right? Or you do a couple of programs at the same time. And so you're using a couple of SMEs, right? I mean, like you take today, who is it? Custom Glass was just putting something like 40 people through an apprenticeship program. All of a sudden you have a need for more instructors. So to have these libraries of these different tools, right, would really help. And you could start to prepare them now. You've got people that you may not call them SMEs, but you would say they're your most learned, all right? They're your better operators. Start to ask them, what are some of the stories you have about things that have happened when you've been operating this piece of equipment? And then how did you handle it? Create a video of how you start it up, of how you set it up, of how you shut it down, of how you do an emergency shutdown. All of these are training tools. You start to prepare those now, right? So that when you need it and you're having to develop a number of different people to do this, you have all these learning tools available that will be, I mean, they can be amazing things. You get people who have been operating the equipment for years and have gone through all these different situations, know about, they can, set it up, start it up, shut it down, perform maintenance on it, right? Capture that information. They've got great stories. How many of you do a lessons learned? Something happens, you put it through a problem-solving process, you troubleshoot it, put it through a problem-solving process. Then when it's all fixed, you go through a lessons learned process and say, okay, what happened? Why did it happen? How bad was it? What if it happens again, right? Go through a lessons learned process. Those become great tools for learning. Let's see. Okay, operating data, visuals, or graphics. That's where you have documents, you have systems where you can create charts of data about here's a normal operation, here's a turnaround operation, here's a shutdown operation, and you can actually show them the graphics. Visuals help people to learn, right? I know that I'm a lot better if I do structured OJT than and see things happening. If you show me a video, if you show me graphs, than if you give me something to read. I mean, I can read, but I learn faster if I can see pictures that illustrate things. Mind maps, ecosystems illustration. This drawing that you see here, where it's the blended learning and development system, that's an example of a mind map or ecosystem illustration, right? Where you can see in a blended learning system, here's all the different elements that could be a part of it, right? Okay, let's see, libraries, so operating processes and questions. One of the best ways to get people engaged is to ask them questions. What did you learn today? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? How will you use that tomorrow? Okay, I just showed you how to do this. Do you remember when I said this? Why did I say that? Why do you think I focused on that? How many of you like sports? How many of you like coaches, right? This is a part of the learning process, the asking of questions, right? You need to engage them in the learning process. How many of you have known people that you didn't ask them questions, you didn't do that all the way throughout, and you thought they were paying attention, you thought they had it, and you're going along and, okay, you understand, yep, and they nod, and you don't ask for any more, you just ask yes, no questions, and you get to the next day, and you go out there and you start the next step, and all of a sudden you get them saying, well, when did we learn this? When do we learn that? Why do we do this? Were you here yesterday with me? Right? Asking of questions as you go along is also not just engaging them, but one of the best verifiers that they're with you and that they are learning as you go through it. So as a part of this, what are some of the questions that you could ask? Create a library of questions. Okay. I mean, one of the things, just think about this, creating all these libraries, part of it is the person who's going to be doing the training, or the people that do the training, right, are going to be going through a sort of a self-evaluation process and learning more about what it is that they know, and then to be able to use that to teach. Okay. Yes, I realize that I'm running down again. Okay, so talent development methodology, design and develop. This is where you put all that together. And basically, I will tell you that there is a process. You should start with telling, informing, right? Here's what we're going to do. Here's where we're going to go. Here's what this does. Then demonstrating, showing them, right? Then every step of the way, having a discussion. Okay, what do you have for questions? Did you understand that? So using questions to stir up some discussion. Explain that one to me. What did I just tell you? How does that work? Then getting them to practice, right? So you demonstrate, you told them, you demonstrate it, we've had discussions. Now you walk me through it. You operate this. Okay, I want you to tell me what you're going to do. How are you going to set this up? Why do this, right? And you have them practice, right? You start off with them just telling you. You could use simulators. In some cases, we're seeing more artificial intelligence today. And so people are engaging simulators. So they try to figure out ways that you can practice either by just walking through, not actually doing, explaining, using simulators, doing it with a hand on the shoulder. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, okay, the next thing I would do is this. Okay, do that. All right, then the next, what would you do next? And you get them to walk through. Okay, and then measure, assess learning. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. Deploy. The only thing I'm going to say about deploy today is Most deployment is going to be with SMEs. How many of you use mentors? One of the mentor systems have been fantastic systems. Find somebody. I believe in a couple of different mentors. I believe in a mentor for just how do we do business here, right? That if you have problems, if you think you're doing things, but all of a sudden you get in trouble, if you went to training and you learned this, but now you go onto the job to use it, and somebody says, no, we don't use that stuff, right? Okay, what am I supposed to do? You have a mentor, you can go to them. Somebody that you trust, that you can confide in, ask questions that you may be afraid to ask other people about. And then coaches, we've talked about those people that will walk you through things, ask you questions, right? Sometimes that's the instructor, sometimes that's the SME. SMEs can be all of these things. However, one of the things I will tell you is not all SMEs are the best instructors. They know it, and they're great at building those tools, but they may not be the best person to have develop a person. They're impatient. They have it exactly their way. They won't allow any flexibility so that you can learn, on and on and on. So just keep that in mind. Okay, measure, verify, track. All right, I've talked about what if mind drills. What would you do if? This is a part of testing. All these questions, many of these tools that I've talked about can be used as a part of measuring whether a person has learned it. Ask them to explain what just happened. Okay, why do we do this? Okay, why do we do this way? It's actually a two-part question, right? What else does this impact? With the technology changing and increasing rapidly, you're finding that more and more things are integrated. And so if you do something here, you may be thinking it's just going to impact here, but it may impact your internal supply chain down the road or up the road, right? In the processes. Measure by presenting case studies and then asking them how would they handle it. Asking them to explain, asking them to walk through it, asking them to show me walkthroughs. What did you learn today? Can you explain it? Maybe even asking them to go to another person and tell them how to do it. How about that, right? You got to be creative in getting people engaged and finding out what it is they actually learned. Use multiple evaluators. That's some, so you got multiple people that are operators, have them observe, have them ask questions, have them, the student go to them to explain things, to show things. Take lots of notes, details. What exactly did the person say? What exactly were their behaviors? I have a tool that looks like this where I originally set it up for performance evaluations, right? But it has, let's see, I guess I go up here. You can't tell, but it has things like, okay, what exactly was the event? What exactly did they do, say? What was the yield? What happened? What was the benefits of what they just did, right? So it's like a work sampling tool. Set up something like this, a spreadsheet, something where you can track all this data that you captured when you were measuring and verifying. When incorrect, what that means is when you ask them a question and they were incorrect, and then you ask them some questions around it, did they work through the process? What was their thought process? Again, with advanced technology, thought processes can play a critical role. All right, then enter verifications into tracking tools. This is a part of tracking. What is it that they've completed? What are the talents that they have? This one's a scary one. 70% of all talent development is informal. All right. Now, what you need to do is constructively influence that as much as possible. Okay. That's kind of scary because who do they listen to? What do they see? What don't they see? What does management measure? You can read all these things, right? So they send them to training and they get back and management says, no, we don't do that stuff anymore, right? Well, I know they said to do it this way, but we skipped that. We found that this is one of the things that I can't say enough. Make sure that your training is in line with your operations and vice versa, right? Have your trainers, have the people who design the system talk with the people who are doing the operating system over and over again, that they stay up to date. Set up mentors, set up the libraries that we talked about. Those are all things that can be used. If you close the gap in that 70% time, right, where they're seeing things, they're hearing things, but you close it to where they understand there's an SME, they understand that there's a mentor, they understand that there's this learning tool, they understand that, right, then they can do checks, because are people still gonna do things that are opposite of what they just learned in training? They'll see that happen, they'll hear a manager say something, they'll hear a coworker, yes, but what you want to do is provide tools that they can go to on their own, people that are reliable. That's where the SMEs and the mentors are. If you hear something like this, go to them, talk to them, find out. Then what can happen is, because the mentors and the SMEs have been there for a while, they can say, ooh, I can see where this is a problem. But now they have the political, but businesses are politics too, right? So they have the political knowledge of who they should go to and how they approach it, right? Where the new kid could be somewhat like a bull in a china closet, right? They're out stirring up all kinds of hate and discontent, and they don't even realize they're doing it, just because they're being openly straight, and nobody wants to see openly straight. They want you to understand how to say it and who to talk to and how to bring it up, right? So make it safe. Employee engagement versus engaging employees. Remember at the beginning, I said that you want to be sure that talent development, yes, that's a critical element, but you need to have, along with the talent development, the learning systems, you need to have enabling and you need to have talent engagement, all right? I came up with this employee engagement versus engaging employees comparison, because sometimes people are using the same terms in the wrong ways. Employee engagement is a whole system that includes things like, what is it that motivates and increases an employee's commitment to an organization? They need to be aligned, right? Like, why are we doing things? Why are we doing things this way? What are we all about here? Where are we going? Why did they just conduct this training program? Why did they, on and on. Alignment, having people understand why things are happening, including understanding where my job fits in with the whole mission here, right? How do I fit in? Why is my job important? Who is it important to? Aligning. Other things that increase people's motivation and commitment is, some people just like to accomplish things. How many of you out there, like to get things done, like to see things happen, right? And so accomplishing, completing this training program, getting more authority and influence. If we are going to engage SMEs, get them to come up with all kinds of different tools, influence the training and development, influence the hiring process, on and on, that increases, right, your influence and authority. And we can go on. There's more things I've got 8 different factors that play a role in employee engagement. Now, engaging employees, you train them on all this, you put them through this. Now you want to get a return on investment, right? Well, you engage them in problem solving. You engage them in lesson learned. How many of you think that people on the front line may know better than managers as to what we should be hiring? Okay, what is it we really need on the work floor? What are the talents they really need to have? 2 years ago, I went through this training program. Boy, I wish I'd had this before I started the training program. It sure would have made it simpler, right? So technology purchases, they're a part of the whole production process, but we just talk to the engineer and we talk to the manager. Why don't we talk to the employees doing the job, right? Process improvements and talent development tools, those are those libraries. Those are ways that you can engage the talents that people have in productive ways that also increase their engagement, as in their motivation and commitment. Oh, okay, so that was it. All right, so we got a few minutes for questions, maybe even answers. Anybody got an answer?
Thank you again, Mac. Great presentation, and you did it. You got through a lot of content quickly.
Yes.
Not seeing anything in chat come up yet, but I had just a couple of thoughts, and these might be softball questions for you. But just, I guess, as you're talking about the SMEs and the training, how do you, I guess, incorporate the employee into this without making them feel like they're training their replacement or something like that? Like, how do you? I imagine some of that gets to why calling them the subject matter experts, I'm sure, helps them feel more comfortable with, you know, laying out their position to be videoed, to be, you know, to help with that training. Because I have heard definitely stories of, you're right, they put the people next to the people on the line and they just want to get their job done. They don't want to, and that's where some of the turnaround happens, where the person they're training doesn't get what they need to actually, you know, do the job, because the trainee doesn't want to see them maybe be successful possibly at that position.
Yeah, and you do run into that at times. I guess it's got to be a concerted effort. Okay, you have to demonstrate in other ways that you value their being a part of the company. You will engage them in other things like projects where they don't have to give up all their knowledge, you know, they just perform well. And so what I'm going to say is you do a mix of things that just illustrate a value in what it is they do. At the same time, then, as you ask them for things that can be used to help train others, if they feel that they are valued and they're, yeah, that's not a good term. I was going to say, and they're used over and over again, but that, and they're engaged and people talk about them, they start to feel, right, more trust. Help us to fix this system, you know, that's not necessarily asking them to, you know, brain dump and tell everybody everything it is they know, but it does show that you have value and we want to keep you. There is another thing that you could take and do when you look at how people move. There's a lot of talk about career mapping today, right? One of the things you could set up is a subject matter expert career map. How many of you recognize that there's a lot of people that love the technicalities of their job, love all the technical knowledge, love performing the job? They don't want to be a manager. But unfortunately, the only way you can get ahead is, or get an increase in pay, is by moving up the management chain. All right. Well, set up a subject matter expert chain. there's a whole process to setting all of this up, okay? That, I mean, it needs to be a system fully integrated that takes all these different things into account. You don't have, and the other thing is do it in phases, where I don't think that you need to go straight to an SME system where you go straight to paying for being an SME. You do all those other things to show value in them, and you see how it works, and you do more of it. And then maybe 2 years from now, you say, okay, we kind of like this because now we're getting more managers, leaders in there that have people leadership skills, and the technicians are staying that don't like that and aren't that good at it. The technicians are staying as technicians, right? And they're helping other people be better technicians. Did I answer your question?
Totally.
Frank got
Totally.
a question there.
Okay, you mentioned apprenticeships. I got something from Frank Hickman II. All right, over the years, this term has been associated with organized labor. What do these apprenticeship programs look like today? Okay, then you mentioned mission, and to me, that goes to the heart of employee morale. Can you comment on training leaders? Okay, let's see, one thing at a time. Apprenticeships. Apprenticeship, okay, let's see, associated with, yeah. First off, it's not a union tool and a union only tool, I guess is what I mean. You're finding that the number of union shops have decreased. I'm not going to argue whether they did their job, whether they were worth it or not, but they have decreased, right? And such that you find that most apprenticeship programs that exist today are not relative to being a part of a union. Apprenticeship is a structured OJT. That's really all it is. It's supported by the Department of Labor. You'll hear about Apprenticeship Ohio. And what I will tell you is that Apprenticeship Ohio is kind of like under that federal Department of Labor umbrella. They're the state of Ohio's representative of apprenticeship programs. What do these programs look like today? Well, this is one of the things where I do have a little bit of a problem with, but apprenticeship programs are somewhat like some of those programs that you somewhat associate with union shops, right? Where you have to do at least 2,000 hours, basically a year. Some of them will be 4,000, some will be 6,000, some of them are even 8,000 hours, all right? They have started a thing called competency-based apprenticeship programs and hybrid-based apprenticeship programs, where competency-based is if you can come up with the tools, the measurement tools, like I said, start that library now, start to build into it. How do you measure whether somebody has these talents or doesn't have these talents? What do you ask them? What do you ask them to demonstrate? I don't know. Okay. So they have a competency-based one. It can take a 6,000 hour one down to 2,000 hours. It can take a 4,000 hour one down to 2,000 hours. I don't know if you're noticing a trend here, but you can't go less than 2,000 hours. Okay, so you can take some of the longer ones and through a competency-based program where you actually measure the competencies, right, reduce it, but it still has to be a year. All right. What has to happen? Boy, this is another training program. Explain the whole apprenticeship. I will tell you this: the places to go about apprenticeship programs is Apprenticeship Ohio. You've got like John Trott is somebody that's with Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. Yeah, sorry. He's the Area 7 coordinator, which means he has like 43 counties in the state. He helps to set up, make arrangements for the apprenticeship programs. One of the good thing about apprenticeship programs is it has more of a system. But I will tell you this, one of the things that got me more and more into this systems things is that there is no consistency there. It depends on who you get that they contract with from Apprenticeship Ohio or the Department of Labor as to how they set up the system. So the system, the Apprenticeship Ohio system, does not have a template that they use for how a training program, a structured OJT, has to be put together. It depends on who you get as a part of that contract. Does that make sense? It's basically, it's two parts. It has theory, and they usually work out arrangements with like community colleges to do the theory, you know, like physics, pneumatics, hydraulics, electrical circuitry, all those kinds of things. And then they have the structured OJT where you actually go in and you learn on the equipment with a SME how to actually perform the job. And it has some structure to it. But again, you may find one where it's kind of like, follow me around. If you have any questions, ask them. Otherwise, just watch me, right? And nothing's in writing. And then you could have another one where it's all details and you got like basically a signature manual. Okay, today I got to get this signature. I got to get this signature. So it's all over the board. Let's see. Yeah, mission. One of the things I believe is that each job should have a mission. And that mission, if you look at like a tier, right? What's the mission of the organization? What are we here for? Then you go to a department, that department. What is that department's mission? Then you get down, you know, like you go department, unit, job. And there should be an alignment with all of those, right? And that you understand, here's my mission here. And you're right. Leaders need to value, I will tell you this, the way that talent is going today, the value of talent, because of what's happening with technology, right? And we've got talent wars right now. We've got businesses saying, I could do a lot more, but I can't find the talent. Well, the last thing you want to do is pay for an apprenticeship program and then find out that your management and leadership did a terrible job of engaging people and retaining people. You don't want the revolving door thing. Talent is becoming more and more and more valuable. And that means, you know, understanding employee morale, doing things that engage them more fully, demonstrates a value in them. That's what needs to be done. Okay, I have no, oh, we just hit noon. I don't see any other questions.
I just wanted to piggyback on that real quick. We had our membership-wide survey, the first one we've done in 5 years, and the #1 challenge remains for our businesses in this community, and probably many communities, is the availability of technically qualified employees or candidates for employment. That remains #1. It was #1 5 years ago, remains #1 today. Yes. And then availability of candidates who possess necessary soft skills is right behind it at #2. So those things have not changed in a very long time and continue to be something to, so making sure, to your point, how do you retain the folks, how do you train up the folks properly is definitely something that all businesses should be looking for. I think this is an excellent presentation on that for sure.
Thank you.
One of the other things that caught my eye, I guess, is when you talk about the subject matter experts and the use of video. I thought that was maybe a safe way to do it, given that they probably, when they're being videoed, there wouldn't be the corners cut. There would probably be the way they were supposed to be being trained to do. And if that's the first thing that the trainees see when is the video of it, and then they go on the floor and then they go, oh, that's not how you did it in the video. That might help both parties, I guess, stay honest on that stuff. So I thought that was smart. And I did like the idea of, you mentioned as they're getting trained, the completion. The younger generation likes to gamify everything. So putting it to something where they can complete a certain thing and either in some way mark that they've done it, I'm sure that would speak to them. So I thought that was interesting as well. But again, Mac, great presentation. I did put in the chat the link to apprentice.ohio.gov, the employer side of that website, and I'll share that, of course, in the slides that we'll send out to people and any links that Mac thinks would be important to share afterwards. But thank you again for everyone who was able to attend. And Mac, again, thank you. Great job. And we will see. We have one more HR Council before the summer break. And then hopefully my goal is to have us all be meeting in person again in September and back at the chamber, if everything goes the way we hope it will be in this community. So with that, again, Mac, thank you very much. And hopefully everyone has a great rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.